Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning into today's video. We have more gaming and PlayStation news, rumours and leaks to go over. But I want to give out a huge shout out to start with to the God of War and Uncharted channel members. Names you can see scrolling across the screen. Your support on the channel is absolutely invaluable. Thank you ever so much. If you're new here to the channel, consider subscribing and becoming a channel member and get yourself some exclusive member perks. Right then, more than 4 years have passed since IO Interactive, the team behind the Hitman series, first announced their James Bond video game, Project 007. Recently, the game made an unexpected appearance during the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. However, rather than unveiling new gameplay or details about the game, the brief teaser simply showed a bullet being loaded into a gun chamber followed by the iconic Bond introduction. Interestingly, this was the exact same teaser trailer that was shown back in 2020 when the game was originally revealed for the PlayStation 5. The lack of new footage has left many wondering just how far along the game is in development and when players will actually get their hands on the game. IO Interactive has been clear that Project 007 is not a direct adaptation of any existing Bond film or book. Instead, it aims to tell an entirely original James Bond origin story. According to the developers, players will take on the role of a young James Bond, experiencing his early days as he works his way up to earn his prestigious 00 status. This means that the game is not tied to any specific actor's portrayal of Bond, allowing IO Interactive to create a version of the character uniquely suited to this video game. Hakan Abrak, CEO of IO Interactive, has expressed high hopes for Project 007. He's even suggested that the game could be the start of a new trilogy, setting the stage for multiple Bond adventures in the future. This approach mirrors IO Interactive's successful handling of the Hitman franchise, which adopted a trilogy format that was widely praised for its depth and storytelling. The goal is to create a fresh and engaging Bond experience that stands on its own rather than being a mere tie-in to the films. Despite the excitement surrounding Project 007, updates on its progress have been scarce. In late 2024, reports suggested that development was going well, but no concrete release date was provided. IO Interactive's financial reports indicate that the game is unlikely to be released in 2025. This means that fans may have to wait at least another year, if not longer, before they can step into the shoes of James Bond. The recent Nintendo 2 Switch 2 Direct presentation confirmed that Project 007 will also be coming to Nintendo's next generation console, in addition to other platforms like PlayStation 5, Xbox and PC. The Switch 2 itself is set to launch on June the 5th, 2025, meaning the game will likely arrive sometime after that date. However, without new gameplay footage or additional details, it remains unclear how far along Project 007 truly is in its development cycle. Given IO Interactive's track record with the Hitman series, expectations for Project 007 are understandably high. The studio has proven its ability to create detailed, immersive worlds with deep stealth mechanics, elements that could definitely translate very well into a James Bond game. If the game successfully blends espionage, action and storytelling, it could become one of the most definitive Bond gaming experiences to date, and we definitely need something in this space. Splinter Cell did a great job years ago, but we haven't really seen anything in this space from them, and we know there were rumours that Ubisoft were doing something with Splinter Cell, but again, that's gone quiet. Metal Gear Solid did a fantastic job for years in the spy and espionage space, and we haven't had anything from them for years. And yes, we've got an MGS Snake Eater game coming out, which is fantastic, but I go back to that Nintendo 64 game, GoldenEye, which was probably the greatest spy game of all time, certainly for me anyway. So getting a new James Bond game in the next 12 to 18 months or something like that is fantastic, really exciting. Just wish we could have seen some gameplay, that's all. Anyway, let's move on. Some exciting news about a studio gearing up to potentially make older classic titles, remake or remaster them in all of their glory for the modern PS5. There are countless incredible games from the PlayStation 3 era that have become increasingly difficult to access due to the console's unique and complex architecture. Unlike earlier PlayStation consoles, the PS3 system design made backward compatibility a serious challenge for Sony, which is why many of its classic titles remained locked specifically to that hardware. Currently, the only official way to play these games on the PlayStation 5 is through PS Plus premium cloud streaming services, which isn't always the ideal experience for gamers who prefer native playability. This is where studios specializing in game remasters, such as Night Dive Studios, could come into play. Helldivers built a strong reputation for bringing classic games back to life, successfully remastering titles like Turok and The Thing. And according to an interview with VGC, Nightdive's boss Larry Cooperman expressed confidence that his team is ready to take on the challenge of reviving PS3 games. Studio head Stephen Kirk elaborated on this point, acknowledging that the PS3's architecture was notoriously difficult for developers to work with, even when it was first released. He pointed out that this very issue is one of the biggest obstacles in making PS3 games backward compatible. However, Kick remains optimistic, stating that if the studio were able to tackle PS3 remasters, they have the experience needed to do a serviceable job. One example that Kick specifically referenced was Haze, which was a PS3 exclusive first-person shooter developed by Free Radical Design. And while Haze was not particularly well received at launch, he explained that a remaster could allow the original designers to revisit the game and refine the elements that have held it back somewhat. This approach has already worked well for Nightdive's System Shock 2 Remastered, where the transition to newer hardware helped resolve technical issues such as frame rate inconsistencies, texture resolution, and long loading times. This raises the question, which PS3 era games deserve the remaster treatment? Many fans would love to see Sony collaborate with Nightdive Studios to revive beloved franchises like Resistance, Killzone, and Infamous, which remain trapped on the PS3 hardware. I mean, imagine the MotorStorm series, for example, which could make a triumphant return with improved visuals, enhanced gameplay mechanics, and modern performance upgrades. With demand for classic game preservation growing and remasters becoming more common, especially during the PS5 era, perhaps it's only a matter of time before we see some of these PS3 gems make their way to the PS5. And with Team Asobi having achieved wonders with Astrobot, developed by a team of only 65 people, it's certainly worth Sony giving studios like Nightdive the opportunity to collaborate on hundreds of classic PS2 and PS3 titles worthy of remasters. What do you think? What classic PlayStation games would you like to see Sony revive? While you think about that, go ahead and smash that like button and let's move on. So is Microsoft preparing to charge PlayStation gamers more for Halo? Microsoft, a $1 trillion company, are they preparing to fleece PlayStation gamers? We know the gaming industry is rapidly changing, with exclusivity becoming less rigid. As companies look to expand their reach across multiple platforms and devices, one of the biggest discussions in recent months has revolved around the possibility of Halo the Master Chief Collection making its way to PS5 and potentially even Nintendo's upcoming Switch 2. However, new reports suggest that Microsoft may have a different plan in mind, one that could involve charging PlayStation users on a per-game basis rather than offering the full collection in one. Rumours have been swirling about Microsoft's strategy to bring more of its exclusives to other platforms. This shift has already been seen with titles like Indiana Jones and The Great Circle, which was initially announced as an Xbox exclusive, but is now coming to PS5. This naturally led to speculation that Microsoft's iconic Halo franchise might follow suit, and in a recent segment of the Xbox 2 podcast, The Verge senior editor Tom Warren commented on the situation, saying that while a Halo release on PlayStation is definitely possible, it might not be in the form of the Master Chief Collection as a single package. Instead, Microsoft might opt to license individual Halo games separately. Warren remarks suggest that rather than providing access to the entire collection, Microsoft could release select titles, potentially making PlayStation gamers pay more for each game separately rather than receiving the complete bundle. Another interesting aspect of the discussion revolves around the rumored remake of Halo Combat Evolved. The original Halo received an anniversary edition upgrade in 2011, but many fans felt that it didn't quite live up to the standard set by Halo 2 Anniversary. With 343 Industries rebranding as Halo Studios and shifting development to Unreal Engine 5, there is speculation that a fully fledged remake could be in the works. Warren noted that this move to Unreal Engine 5 aligns with what a studio might do if it were planning to remake a classic title for modern hardware. The relationship between Microsoft and Sony has certainly evolved over the years. The so-called console wars are no longer as rigid as they once were, with Xbox games and console sales plummeting. Microsoft has opened the door and recognizes the benefits of offering its games onto other platforms. Microsoft had already announced that the Forza series will be coming to PlayStation in a few months' time, signaling a more open approach to sharing its flagship franchises. And while nothing is set in stone regarding Halo's arrival on PlayStation, the possibility remains intriguing. And if Microsoft does choose to license individual games rather than the full collection, PlayStation users they will end up paying more for that experience. Whether this will be seen as a fair business move or a strategy to maximize profits remains to be seen. Let me know your comments down below and smash that like button. Let's move on. Helldivers 2 made waves when it launched in 2024, quickly becoming one of the most successful titles of the year. However, its journey was anything but smooth. From early praise to major controversies, the game experienced a turbulent ride that tested both the developers and the community. One of the biggest requirements surrounded the requirement for PC players to link their PlayStation accounts. This move sparked a backlash, leading to a dramatic drop in the game's user rating on Steam, plummeting to a mere 19% at its lowest point. And despite this, Arrowhead Game Studios remained committed to turning things around, and under the leadership of their new CEO, Shams Georgiani, the game made a stunning comeback. Georgiani, who took the reins a few months after launch, shared his experience on an episode of The Game Business Show. He admitted that he had expected Sony to exert significant control over Helldivers 2, given that PlayStation had fully funded the project. Having spent over a decade at Paradox Interactive, Georgiani assumed that Sony would want to dictate the game's direction. However, he was pleasantly surprised to find that PlayStation was more creator-friendly than he had anticipated. He goes on to say that the biggest surprise for me was how much more creative freedom PlayStation gave us. I thought they would run the show since they funded the whole thing, but they've been incredibly supportive. Sure, there have been some missteps, every company makes them, but overall, they've been a fantastic partner. Helldivers 2 wouldn't exist without PlayStation's commitment to making great games. Even with PlayStation support, Helldivers 2 hit rock bottom during the summer of 2024. At the height of the backlash, the game's approval rating on Steam had sunk to an abysmal 19%. And Georgiani recalled the difficult conversation he had at the time with Herman Hulst, the CEO of PlayStation Studios, where he had to explain the situation and the studio's recovery plan. He goes on to say that I had to be upfront and say there's no quick fix for this, but we've had a long-term plan to get things back on track. We implemented a 60-day plan, kept updating the game, and pushed forward. I took a lot of inspiration from No Man's Sky. They went through something very similar. The key was to stay focused, improve the game, and win back the players. And over time, Arrowhead's persistence has paid off. The updates just keep on rolling out, gradually improving the gameplay experience time by time. And by September 2024, the player sentiment had shifted dramatically, and the game's Steam rating climbed from 19% back up to an impressive 94%. Within the community, this rapid shift became a running joke, with fans often saying the game was constantly swinging between "it's over" and "we're back." A significant factor in Helldivers 2's sustained popularity was the Game Master feature, which kept the game dynamic and engaging. The system allowed for real-time changes to the game world directly influenced by player actions. A prime example of this occurred when the planet Moradesh was destroyed, partly due to player decisions in the Galactic War. Events like these kept players invested in the game as their actions had tangible consequences. The game also continued to expand with brand new content. The premium Warbond system, which serves as Helldivers 2's equivalent of a battle pass, introduced fresh themes and gear. One of the most popular additions was Borderline Justice, a Wild West themed warbond featuring weapons like the R6 Deadeye lever action hunting rifle and the LAS-58 Talon energy revolver. With frequent updates and a thriving player base, Helldivers 2 managed to turn its fortunes around in spectacular fashion. It's good to get a little insight behind how Sony backs and supports game development being developed by an external studio, allowing the developers creative freedom to develop, whilst knowing that if there were any bigger problem, then Sony would deal with it. For Arrowhead, that must have been a great feeling, knowing that they can just focus on the creativity and designing and building a game which will keep the players engaged, all the while knowing that Sony is there to lean on. Are you still playing Helldivers? Let me know in the comments and let's move on. So while Helldivers 2 embraced an ever-evolving multiplayer experience, the upcoming Doom: The Dark Ages is taking a slightly different approach. Unlike its predecessors, which featured multiplayer modes, the latest entry in the legendary franchise is focused purely on delivering the best single-player campaign possible. Hugo Martin, the games director, explained the decision in an interview with Games Radar. According to him, the choice to exclude multiplayer was made early in development rather than splitting their efforts between different modes. The team wanted to pour all their resources into crafting a truly exceptional solo experience. Martin goes on to say that with Doom Eternal, we had a lot of ideas we wanted to implement, however, resources were spread thin between the campaign and the multiplayer mode. With Dark Ages, we decided from the start that we are going to focus entirely on making the best single-player game we can. The reason behind the decision isn't just about the development resources. Martin pointed out that modern multiplayer experiences have evolved into fully fledged live service projects. A small tacked-on multiplayer mode wouldn't meet fans' expectations. Instead, it would require a dedicated effort that could take away from the campaign's quality. You can't just add a little multiplayer, Martin stated. If you're going to do it, you have to go all in, and fans expect a fully developed multiplayer experience, and that would come at the expense of a single player mode. So we made the call to focus 100% on delivering an amazing campaign. One of the most intriguing aspects of Doom: The Dark Ages is its unique approach to gameplay. In a previous interview with PC Gamer, Martin revealed that players can actually complete the entire game without firing a single gun. Of course, doing so will be an immense challenge, but it highlights the variety of combat options available to players. Sounds very interesting indeed, and the fact that it's a single player experience, I'm now looking forward to the game even more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.